We are going to welcome you back to the Principal's Podcast. Today is not live. Yesterday we went live and we had some audio issues on the tab. So we went back to our roots, the way that we started doing this. Today I have my co-host. I have Lawrence Taylor up in the corner there. And our special guests, we have Coach Salatino, who was kicked out of his house. And we have a number one draft pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jake Hamulak, joining us today. So kind of the reasons we should have Jarrett Hall. I mean, he was on our meeting earlier. He was so excited to be on. We all have contacted him. He's either eating or sleeping. And hopefully he joins in. We might also have Mr. Bandero and his beautiful mustache. Coach Salatino, you've been coaching for decades, and this is something you've never experienced before. So can you walk us through kind of like you were literally in the car driving, ready to go, and then things happened. So talk to us, because we didn't have proper closure with wrestling.
Well, I mean, kind of like you said, we had to adjust our plans. Originally, we were scheduled to be down there earlier than we were going to be down there. Ohio State opens up their wrestling room to participants in the state wrestling tournament, which is a really nice experience for the state tournament participants. And we were going to head down even earlier than we had changed our plans to. And, you know, they've got a new wrestling facility down there, so we were really looking forward to that. So then we were on our way, got 2 calls actually in succession. And then we just kind of, we kind of sat there and digested it and licked our wounds for a little bit, and then returned to school with our tail between our legs. Not a good feeling.
Jake, we've been watching you for many years. We call you the spider monkey. Watching you on that mat, flying around, it's almost like watching a game of chess, finding the right move, attacking, and then, pinning kids. You are holding many records at Chardon High School. This one hurts because this was your podium year, and you've had now like 7 weeks to kind of digest this. Talk to us a little bit about that whole moment when you found out where you are right now.
Yeah, when it was first canceled, I was pretty shocked because, at that point it seemed people were talking about the possibility of that Friday of school being canceled just so you could talk about what would happen if school got canceled. And even that seemed kind of unbelievable, that wouldn't happen. So I don't know, I was just kind of shocked. And then I realized as soon as it was postponed that there's no way it was going to be able to ever happen because of weight management stuff and no place to practice. So I don't know. That weekend I hung out with friends because we were still able to, and kind of just digested what happened.
So how are you now? Are you mentally preparing? Because obviously we're still in the kind of the tailing off of the senior year academically, which has been impacted by millions of kids. You already lost wrestling, which impacted hundreds of kids in our state and in our country, thousands. We have such a huge fan base in Chardon for wrestling and our program that it has been developed over decades. What are you preparing? Are you mentally preparing for college right now for that wrestling season? What are you doing now to mentally prepare to close out high school and prepare for college?
Honestly, mentally preparing, I haven't really been doing much. I'm kind of just living day by day. I've been working out every day and staying in shape, but that's about it.
What are you currently, if you weighed in today, where would you be at?
Honestly, I can't tell you. I haven't checked.
Probably hasn't stepped on the scale in a while.
Not since that Thursday, probably.
So many of you well, clearly those of you who are on this broadcast know the amount of work that goes behind the scenes with not only Coach Salatino, but there's a guy up there in the corner sporting his famous hat that his New York. He was a wrestling coach, and he ran a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So, Chaim, talk to me. I'm going to interview you. How it impacted you because you live and breathe in the winter wrestling.
It's one of those things where I think the two guys that spoke before me will tell you, you look forward to events during the season. And there's different reasons why you look forward to it, like the Battle of the Barn was something we were looking forward to. You look forward to the conference meet and different things like that. But any true coach and athlete, it's the end prize. It's that opportunity to be at the top of the podium to say you're a state champ in any sport. And wrestling is one of those unique sports where it's an individual sport, and at the same time, it's a team sport. So there's two different angles that you can look at this. And one of the things Jake and I don't talk a lot, but one of the things I always looked at him and I always mentioned is that you're going to see an emotional kid because quite honestly, you could never tell that when he's wrestling. You're going to see that. And I kept telling him how many weeks someone will say something. And I truly believe that there was going to be a moment where we were going to see some excitement out of Jake when he was on top of that podium. I had a feeling it was something that I knew was going to happen. Something that, to kind of sidebar with the other wrestler who couldn't join us yet, I had a conversation with Jarrett. We talked about some different things, and it's a long grinding season. I think the winter season is probably the longest season of any of the sports that we have. Wrestling is a taxing sport. It's one of those taxing sports that attacks your entire body nonstop, similar to swimming, where you really can't take a break. And if you do, it's not going to go well, just like if you're swimming. So, it was tough. I'm not really sure how it handled it. I think Coach Sal did a phenomenal job with his athletes to respond to the situation. For some kids, that are underclassmen that lost this year, they have a future years to look forward to. But for our two seniors, it's just something that, you just kind of wish you can have everyone experience. I've shared the story of when I was at Euclid playing for a state title in baseball, and it's just one of those things. Even 30 years later, you still talk about, you cherish, you think about, and to lose one of those life experiences, it's just hard to explain.
I don't, unless you've been on the mat, and I can't speak on it, but obviously I've coached. There's like two sports. Well, there's multiple sports, but you got, wrestling, you have golf, and you have swimming that really connect to being mentally prepared, and really having to do it yourself, being knowing you're a part of a widget of a bigger system of a team, but you have a job to do specifically. And so would you say, both of you, that this quarantine for the last 5 weeks, how does it parallel your work ethics with wrestling? Because you're kind of in your own world. You kind of have to mentally prepare. And those who are extremely social, they're losing their mind. But a wrestler can be extremely social, but introverted when they come to be prepared. Is there any parallels to your mindset with wrestling and your mindset with quarantine, Coach?
Well, all I can say is that, wrestling is one of those sports, I guess, that, I heard, probably one of the greatest wrestlers that ever wrestled for the United States made this comment, so I'm kind of stealing it from him. He said, it's not lonely at the top. It's lonely getting to the top. So when you're on that path, especially in wrestling, because there's a lot of individual effort that goes into, preparing yourselves for matches, for tournaments, and for the big show of the state tournament. You spend a lot of time on your own, lifting weights, running. You're out on the road probably in the middle of the night, and everybody else is kind of hunkered down and under a blanket and watching TV. You're running through the snow. And so I guess for me, I kind of go back a little bit to those days because, I have a family now. But I guess the thing is to keep busy, have a schedule, and just to get things done. So I obviously I'm teaching during the day, but after that I make a list of chores for myself to get done so that I can kind of beat the tedium of really not going out a whole heck of a lot.
Jake, we woke you up literally for this podcast. And we were saying ahead of time, we actually had to wake up your sister too when we talked about senior mentors. Are you well rested now? Like in general?
Yeah. I every day I wake up for math first period, take a nap, wake up again for physics sixth period, then take another nap, and then I wake up and eat breakfast. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
He's getting ready for college.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
So guys, we're talking sports a lot on these podcasts. It is kind of a fun thing to do is talk about things like that. Tonight's the draft. And I do see Jake is, well, maybe when he was 5, a Steelers fan. Jake, are you still a Steelers fan?
I guess if I was a fan of any NFL team, I would be, but I haven't really watched NFL football in a few years, probably.
You're more of a college kid? You like college sports?
Yeah, I follow that more.
I still will say, as much as you are going to go down as one of the greatest ever that's walked our building in wrestling, you would have been one heck of a running back in football too.
I used to be in elementary school.
Imagine that you'd have like Barry Sanders moves that you just do on the wrestling mat with a ball in your hand. It would have been pretty cool to see. But Coach Salatino, you a Browns guy?
You know what? I like watching the Browns when there's excitement. I got to be honest with you. I mean, a few years ago, I've just been turned off because you can pretty much the script is the same every week. Keep it close in the first half and then blow it in the second half, or score no points in the second half. Not so much last year, but the year before they were exciting to watch. So I did get into more Browns games a couple of winters ago, but last winter I started kind of falling into that same mindset of not really wanting to watch them. I honestly live I live for watching Buckeye games on Saturdays. I really like watching college football.
And we hope we have sports, in the fall and everything they're saying. It's one of those things that I think sports brings our country together. And oftentimes that, people say, sports interferes with academics and interferes with family and things. But I kind of think the opposite. I think that sports bring people together when you have a big game. I think it brings student athletes. There's a reason why students is first. I think the athletic piece of the time management, the organization really bring the best out of students. And I really think it's extremely important for us as a society. And I think that's one of the reasons why the NFL draft is happening tonight. I think that they're trying to bring some normalcy back to what we're trying to do. It was nice to see some of the replays of the Cavs winning the championship and, some different things like that. But I think this country and I'll say our family is starving for some real athletic sports to bring us back together. I think one of the things I remember as a kid, I'm not, Jake, you're obviously weren't born, but when the hockey team, when they beat the Russians, it's just one of those things. I can watch that over and over every day, and it just brings, this excitement and this drive from seeing something. Then I just think that it brings, the best out of us.
We're going to play a little game here. It's going to be called Favorite. And you are going to tell me what your favorite is. So we'll lob it out easy. It's going to be really interesting to see what angle you go on some of these, because I'll give you an example. The first one that I'll ask all three of you is favorite wrestler of all time. And it can go all over: high school, college, professional, like Olympics. Coach Salatino, favorite wrestler of all time.
Jake Hamulak.
Jake Hamulak. Jake Hamulak, favorite wrestler of all time.
Lee Kemp.
Lee Kemp. Keeping it in house.
Doug Heim. He definitely is keeping it. For me, I'm going to say Dan Gable. I know Lee Kemp beat him, but just Dan Gable, I think, set a bar. I think he's criticized for some of his approach by some, but I think they truly don't understand him and know him, that he cares so deeply about people. And I think that's what you see in Coach Sal and Coach Murray and Jake, is that when you're in any sport, when you have coaches that care about their athletes like he did, I think it's very impressive.
I would agree with that. Dan Gable, just a little side note on Dan Gable. A number of years ago, this is a long time ago. These kids are probably close to 30 years old now. I took a bunch of kids to watch the national duels when it was at Cleveland State. And I had to leave early because it was a Sunday. One of my daughters had a birthday party that day. So I left them there and I came back home. And two of our kids were sitting in the stands arguing over who was a better wrestling program, Michigan or Iowa. And the guy sitting behind them said, "What's wrong with Iowa?" And it happened to be Dan Gable. And Dan Gable struck up a conversation with these guys, talked to them for about a half an hour, said, I got to go do a presentation, changed into a suit, went and did a presentation between matches, then came back into the stands and sat with those same three guys and talked to them for another hour. And then they actually, Dan Gable's one of my favorites as well. And they told him that, and he signed a ticket and they framed it for me. And that's the kind of a guy who if you're a wrestler, he loves you to death. It doesn't matter who you wrestle for, how good you are. He just loves you.
You bring up a great point, Sal. Every sport there's a brotherhood or a sisterhood to every sport. But I think wrestling is one of those brotherhoods that it's a different level. It's a special bond. And I think, unfortunately, because of the situation that a lot of, the wrestlers, how close they were to going down to the state tournament, and how about even the national scene? Do you think that's even going to make that bond and brotherhood even stronger?
I think, I guess I look at wrestling as like being in the military, and you have your own teammates that you basically have to war game with every single day until you have to go to war against another team. But the other thing about wrestling is I think there's always been a really strong bond with wrestlers, because if you look at the off season during wrestling, I mean, you could go some places and get probably 20, 25, 30 different schools represented, where kids they make friends, they wrestle with each other. You have different coaches that know your kids. When you're in a pinch for a tournament, if you need to borrow a mat from someone, there's always another coach that's willing to offer something like that. There have been times where, we've opened up our room to other teams, and other teams have done the same for us in situations where, you just needed it. I mean, wrestling is, I don't know that there's another sport where there's as much camaraderie. Maybe there is, but I've never seen it. I've never seen another sport where there's automatically that built-in camaraderie.
You want to know my favorite? I guess we're going to go into Chardon realm. Favorite wrestler I love watching all of our wrestlers. It's because it's a sport I have not played or participated in. Um, I'm not making many places of blame anything. Having 5 knee surgeries does not help when you're trying to move in that way. But I did love watching Dan Anderson um, in the '90s wrestle. He's like Jake, but if you put like it's like pushing Jake and Jarrett together into a body because
Yeah.
he was dense. He was a dense little dude, and he was like a bulldozer. Um, Favorite movie,
Who's first?
Jake.
Coach Sal.
Oh,
Oh, Jake. Go ahead, Jake.
Um, honestly, I don't think I have a favorite movie, but a few days ago I watched Shawshank Redemption, and I really
That's a good
liked that. And it was filmed at that cemetery that's somewhere in Ohio, that whatever it's called.
Sal.
I would say Saving Private Ryan.
That's an excellent one. Hi, do you have one?
Hey, yeah, I kind of follow along with Jake Shawshank, but the one that kind of keeps coming to mind for popped into my head right away was Remember the Titans. It's just some of my life experiences where I've taught in Cleveland Heights and in the experience I've had growing up in Euclid with the diversity and how you come together and how athletics, I believe, bring the best out of people and really can change something. Really, maybe it's just the tone of our podcast today. So that's what came to mind. How about you, Murray?
I have a lot of movies I love. I'll tell you, for the longest time, I watched Caddyshack. I could watch Caddyshack whenever it's on. I can probably quote it all. Half the thing is improv. I do love that, but I love all the movies that you did mention too. Jake, uh, what's your go-to song to get mentally prepared?
Go-to song.
Or musical genre?
Usually, well, honestly, mentally prepare, I kind of don't listen to music, but during practice or when we're lifting, I like just listening like rap music, whatever's popular.
Sal, do you have go-to music?
Oh man, I got a lot of really good songs that I listen to. And to be honest with you, during this little time of quarantine, as a family, we've kind of done some different things in the evenings. One of the things we did last night, believe it or not, is we did a little family karaoke, and then we sat around and listened to some good music. If I had to have a walkout song today, there's a really cool Last of the Mohicans, kind of a rock version of the Last of the Mohicans theme song that I enjoy listening to. It's kind of a rock version, hard rock version of it.
What's that song that you were scared of to listen to? You said in college.
Oh yeah, it was the Goocher. It was Warrior. It was Warrior, but I told that we were talking. Make a long story short, we were talking about superstitions in um, one of our sessions for what was it called, Jake? Mindset training. We did mindset training, and superstitions that kind of hinder your performance. Mine was if I listened to this one song, I listened to it one time, I think I lost a match, and then all of a sudden I couldn't listen to that song anymore. But then I got over that fear last year because that's Jaden Ferris would play that probably once a week and laugh.
Hi, you have go-to music when you were playing the game?
Play a little for you right there.
It's hard to pick it up.
Give
What
it a
is that?
second.
The sound of silence?
you hear that?
I
Is it
know.
coming through?
No, what are you playing?
Oh my goodness! All right. Well, I'm playing it on my computer, but it's the Boss. Whenever I
Oh,
put the
Bruce.
Boss on,
Oh, there
yeah, I
you
love
go.
Bruce. He likes to, he starts out and it just builds. His songs build and build. And when I was actually training for my marathon, I would play a lot of
Perfect.
Bruce. And because the Bruce, I could kind of get it when he would start out getting a little slower, and then it build up, and all of a sudden I could see my stride and everything else building. So I like listening to the Boss.
Mr. Bandera and a beautiful mustache, thank you for joining us from your
Hello.
15th meeting today. We're in the game of favorites. We're going to lead into your question next, but
Okay.
the last question, because it's all been athletically related, favorite music. So we had various different either music styles. What's your go-to music?
That's tough. I don't know. I can listen to pretty much anything. Um, in my car, I usually have a lot of country on, but that doesn't always happen. I tend to listen to more even sports talk radio on the way to work and stuff like that. So not even music there. So I don't know. Depends on what I'm doing.
Are you
Whatever's
sporting Chief
on, I'll listen
Wahoo?
to it.
Are you wearing Chief Wahoo and the
It's my,
Cavs? What is
I don't
that?
know what
What the
it's a little
heck
bit of a
is?
mixture. It's a mixture of all.
It's your
So-
draft
I
day
got the
shirt.
Browns on there too.
I got Browns. I got the Cavs sword, Indians, a little bit of everything.
That's a cool shirt.
Thanks. I think it was a Christmas gift. Hi, Jake. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Hey, guess what? We had to wake him up, much like his sister.
At least he got out of bed, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, does she have some sort of like Hinduistic Buddhism in her room, of some strange like Taoism going on?
Yeah, probably.
Did you see him take that big sigh? Like, oh,
Yeah,
I really.
I don't go near there.
Yeah, how many
Yeah.
times you been out of your bedroom since quarantine?
Not many.
You could be a monk. You would be completely fine living in a cave.
No, I think I'd go crazy.
All right, Mr. Bandera, we were asking favorite wrestler of all time, and then favorite movie, favorite.
Hulk Hogan?
No, they actually
Wrong-
talk about
wrong
like
kind?
real dudes.
Okay, got it.
Not Showtime wrestling. And
Okay.
then we're leading to your question.
So over quarantine, I've had a lot of time. Have you had a favorite quarantine meal so far? Whether it's something you ordered in or something you made yourself or someone made in your family? Any favorite quarantine meal?
Well, this is kind of stupid, but honestly, it's just Giorgio's pizza.
Nice. What do you get on it?
Just pepperoni.
Just pepperoni? Now, is that something you don't have during wrestling season?
Nah.
So after that was over, you're just like, I'm just gonna order
Yeah.
pizza. And I like it.
How many
And
of those could you throw back?
What?
How many pieces could you throw down?
Depends. Maybe. Usually, I'll just have like 3.
Okay, that's
I've
reasonable.
seen this kid eat. We went to Chipotle one time. I saw him eat a burrito that's as big as his head.
Oh, that's La Baba's down in Columbus. La Baba's burritos as big as your head.
Coach Sal, what's your favorite meal so far during this month and a couple days we've had off?
We made some really good burgers yesterday, but I would say a couple weeks ago made some chicken fajitas in the new cast iron skillet that came out pretty good.
Nice.
Very tasty.
Sounds delicious. I'm always looking for more ideas for what to make for dinner because I'm just running out. So
He's going to be putting together a quarantine cookbook from these podcasts.
I'm gonna have to watch them all back
there
and
you
make the Short High School podcast.
However,
Be a
you
great
had,
fundraiser.
Yeah.
Mr. Bandera had a very fancy dinner last night. You made some couscous or something.
No, some paella thing my wife found. She has she has like a Gilmore Girl cookbook. Who knows? I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing. So, but I found the recipe in there and it looked good. So we put that together last night. Had some chicken, some sausage, some shrimp in it, some rice, lemon. It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Wow.
I enjoyed it.
Sounds great.
That was
Yeah.
wonderful.
So we're at the point of this broadcast where you guys get to give some final shout outs to anyone. So anyone like classmates, your students, mom, dad, anyone you'd like to give shout outs to.
Shout out to Jerry for not showing up.
Yeah.
Thought he's gonna be here shirtless.
Well, honestly,
Oh.
it would save me a text message. I was gonna do this earlier in the day, and then I got sidetracked. Honestly, I really just miss the wrestlers. I wanted to shoot them a text, tell them I miss them, but I also miss my students. I really can't wait to be back in the classroom. To be honest with you, with this group of kids, I know it's not going to happen. But I look forward to at least seeing them again at the beginning of next school year. So I would say shout out to all the wrestlers and all my students. I miss you guys.
Sal, has this situation made you reflect to really be grateful that you are doing something that you truly love, and that's teach and coach? Is that like cemented to you that you are doing what you really love?
I would say, what's that title of that song? Don't know what you got till it's gone. That's kind of how I feel right now. Although, I mean, I enjoy being able to make at least some kind of a connection with the kids with Google Meet, but it's just not the same. I mean, I'm grateful that I can still kind of keep some kind of a connection, but I guess I'm happy that I can still be part of their lives. That's for sure.
I had the opportunity.
Definitely not the same. Yeah,
No.
definitely not the same. A lot more complicated in a lot of ways. So
I had the opportunity to talk to Coach Landis before this podcast. We were talking other things related to softball, and he and I were talking. I said, all of our coaches and all of our athletes, the moment that they're able to get reacclimated, they are going to understand truly what it means to play every game like it's your last, and really give it all out in the field, because you never know in the world that we live in. As you clearly saw when you were wrestling, you're like, here we go, I'm going to go to Columbus. No, I'm not. And to really, I guess, focus on the simple things, focus on the moment, and really celebrate the moment, because you never know when the moment is pulled from you.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess if I could say anything about living that message, I would say Jake was one of those kids that lived that way, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times he stayed after practice. He might have been one of the very few that was lifting, or maybe even the only one on a Sunday, or staying after practice, getting extra work in with different people. He did that religiously for his entire career. And sometimes I don't think, people don't notice those things. People don't know that he's back in that room all by himself an hour after practice ended, because he, wanted to be on top of the very top of the podium. And, if I could just say a couple of things about the way I envisioned the season ending, I packed my good clothes for the state tournament. I mean, I was ready to be coaching in the finals of the state tournament. I had that confidence that Jake was going to be in the finals this year. And, with all the research that I could do on the history of Chardon wrestling, I believe Jake was going to be the first 3-time state placer in school history. That's not even something Lee Kemp did. I mean, obviously Lee Kemp is in a league all of his own, but Lee Kemp was an all-state wrestler twice, and Jake was on the verge of doing it 3 times.
So you're telling us there's gonna be a plaque of Jake sometime outside of right outside your classroom, Coach Sal?
I think I think Jake will be in the Chardon Athletic Hall of Fame someday. First time he's eligible, whenever that is. I don't even know what the guidelines are on that.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
Kind of the rule of thumb that I've been, as I'm on that committee, is it's usually 10 years. that's when it becomes eligible. So when you're 28, you might be the youngest one to ever make it.
Hey, can we get a smile?
That was almost a chuckle there. That was almost.
Oh, a half smile. It almost got a smile.
Well, we appreciate your time. We know this was kind of a lengthy one, but it was a great podcast. Jake, we'll be seeing you soon when we do cap and count pickup stuff, and we start doing some virtual events for seniors, and eventually some in-person events. Coach Salatino, certainly we'll see you every day in our meetings and such, but we'll see you too. We'll see you soon also. You guys stay safe. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
All right, my pleasure.
Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You're the best.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Good talking to you. He's gone.
I'm still trying to stop it.